We actually looked like a football team against the league's most terrifyingly informed side. Everyone knew their jobs, subs included. Bentancur returned to provide that touch of class we've been craving. Gallagher was like a ferret on amphetamines. Then there's Xavi Simons, who started in 11 of our 12 wins. Is that a coincidence? Beautiful assist, stunning goal, joy at last. On the flip side, Pedro Porro. It was a sweet goal, but he treats defending like it's optional. We got a spanking new Spurs app. How many Premier League points do we get for that? Read the fucking room, Spurs. No, we don't need 365-day digital engagement. We need a defence that stays alert in time added on. Johan Langer, he's turned us into a team of athletes, but with a couple of exceptions, no one who can actually pass, which is a bit of a blind spot. We're signing Ferraris, but forgetting the steering wheels. RDZ, or is it Z, thinks we can win the final 5 matches. Will the players buy into his positivity? Well, we'll find out at Wolves on Saturday. It's a chance to see if the improvement is real or like that stupid flag stunt. Nothing of substance. Strap in. It's Nice One, Cyril.
Nice one, Cyril.
So, welcome to Nice One, Cyril. I'm Simon Lipson, who started going prepubescently grey in 1970. Coincidentally, the year I got my first Spurs season ticket. Julie Welch is here, the First Lady of Fleet Street, who laces lyricism with lewdness. And Kev Acott and Dave Bradshaw are here, our very own Mitchell brothers. It's about time they cornered Johan Langer behind the Queen Vic and saucy man. Sake. Well, there we are. Now, we drew with Brighton. Another sort of heartbreaking late goal. Oh, that just really sucked all the air out of the stadium. And such a shame because I thought probably on balance we deserved it. Dave, how did you see that match?
I thought we had a real proper desire that seemed to be there all the way through the team. You mentioned Xavi already. He had I thought a really, really good game. But I thought Kinski looked solid at the back, and I thought his distribution really made some difference to us as well. So you could kind of half feel it coming. And for poor Kevin Danso, who's been such an absolute rock, as I think we've said a number of times over the last few months, really frustrating for him, I'm sure. It almost felt worse than losing.
It really did. I left the ground a little bit early, not because I was just trying to get away, but I've become a terrible watcher over the last few years. Like, all of the added time in the Europa League final, I was in the garden. I just couldn't stand it. And I'm waiting for Dave's FFS, which is for fuck's sake, which is Dave's code for the opposition have scored. I'm looking on my watch, and it was FFS 8 minutes of added on time. And I thought, oh, well, at least they haven't scored. But then I thought 8 minutes, no, they're going to score. And inevitably they did. Kev, it was a good performance though, wasn't it? Organised, it was kind of gritty, committed. And I felt we even passed the ball quite well at times. It was like the players actually knew where they were supposed to be and what they were supposed to be doing, which is, like for this season and maybe even last, quite novel.
Yeah, it felt, in a way, it felt like we'd just gone back to playing decent football, if that makes sense. So I suspect, there's a danger of over-egging it because we've been so bad. But people were playing in positions they were comfortable with. Gallagher, he was still 10% of what I was hoping, but that's better than 0% of what I was hoping from him. But he was playing slightly more advanced than before. Simons was great. And I don't think, going back to what you said in the intro, I don't think there is coincidence about us, having decent results when Simons starts. I don't get the idea of him not starting, to be honest. He's the closest to a creative, imaginative, decent midfielder we've got. Kinski, there's just something so lovely about his story in a way that, the way it all went horribly wrong in Madrid. And then, he's sort of been forced to come back maybe before he felt he was psychologically ready, but that's worked, I think. And it's great. Personally, I've got no huge desire to see Vicario back, but, we'll see. That goal.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
From Simons. Sorry, I've just jumped to, it was just incredible.
We will come on to that goal shortly. And I think we need to give Simons a little bit of his own time. But you mentioned Kinski. I absolutely agree that he's so calm. He looks so assured. His kicking is clean and his handling's okay. And he's starting to come for stuff. Julie, there's an argument, isn't there, that possibly De Zerbi will say, yeah, he's done very well, but we're in a very difficult, tight situation and experience is everything. After all, he brought back Bentancur and Bissouma and, he left out Archie and Berival. So perhaps, is that his mindset, do you think? Because for me, getting Flappy back in is, I don't think, going to fill the defenders with the same kind of confidence that Kinski gives them.
Who knows what a manager is thinking? But Kinski is brave. He is confident. Took a lot of bottle for him to sort of do that, come back from what happened. And I just got the feeling that RDZ will stick with him because, there's going to be Vicario, Flappy. Do you have stitches? Or you have a hernia operation or whatever it was? I don't know. He's not going to be fit. We don't need him, do we? We don't need the Flappy sort of syndrome. Kinski's proved he's confident in that role. As I say, he's got bottle. I hope that he keeps the spot for the rest of the season and next, wherever we are. The other thing I'll say is that Bentancur, I think, was better than Archie Gray. I don't know if anybody disagrees with me about that, but, just to have an experienced midfield player who knew where to be and what he was doing was good. I mean, I've always found Bissouma a bit dodgy, but he didn't let us down. We finally had a proper midfield, which we haven't had for weeks and months. Xavi, what can you say? That goal, the assist as well. I think the goal celebration was a bit unfortunate because everybody lost concentration. And I think that's what happened. You concede a goal very quickly after scoring one. It was inevitable. And as soon as we heard it was going to be 8 minutes added on, you just knew, didn't you? I knew because I've got this algorithm in my head which says, okay, late goal to fuck us up.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
It stood to reason somehow, didn't it, that was going to happen? It's such a shame. I just wanted to pick up on that comment about Bentancur, Dave. I mean, before he got injured or when he got injured, I don't think too many of us were lamenting that injury in the sense that nobody wishes an injury on anyone. But, it wasn't like he was pulling up trees at that point. But what he does give, and I felt this at the time, and I thought what we were losing at the time was that composure and his experience, that ability to offload quickly, when he's under pressure. He tackles quite well. He reads stuff really well. And I felt that was absolutely pivotal. It all felt like it revolved around him and it made sense.
Absolutely agree. And actually, I was thinking, when was his big injury, Bentancur? That was a fair while ago now.
Yeah.
But I felt that was his best game for us since before the big, was it cruciate ligament? And I thought, and then obviously those injuries take a while to come back from any time, I guess, but I really felt he was on it. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think he's controls it, he passes it crisp, but he's always there for the guy with the ball, almost like the flank forward in rugby, always on the shoulder of the ball, where the ball is, always there for the easy pass. And it just makes the engine run smoothly. And he is class. He is a really, really class player when he's on song. And as much as Archie is great and has potential, when Bentancur's on song, he's a next level up.
It's an older head, a wiser head, and I think Archie eventually will grow into that. Kev, I'm coming to you for Porro. Up until he scored, to be honest, I was thinking of sending you a WhatsApp saying, how much is Porro annoying you today? Because he was overhitting passes and trying ambitious shit and nothing was coming off and, you look vulnerable. And then he turns up typically and scores a really good goal. He got him behind and the ball in was just Odelian. It was beautiful. And thereafter, Mitoma scored a goal with no one at home. And I felt that people were going past him too easily. And I don't know, why is he always in every Gary of Harlow's 11? When they do their 11s on Twitter, he's always in there. And I don't get it. I'm sure Spence is better.
Yeah, and he seems to be sort of first on the team sheet for most of the 12 managers we've had this year as well. I don't understand it. He is not a good defender. I was actually really pleased for him and felt ever so slightly guilty when he scored. And, I thought, oh, maybe I've got him wrong, or maybe he's going to turn it around. And so, no, of course he didn't. We talk about which of our players would get into other teams. I can't imagine any other team in the Premiership actually choosing to have him in their defence. And I don't mean that in a sort of snide way. I don't think he's good enough. He did, he had little bits of decent games a couple of years ago, but no, I think whatever happens, he needs to go.
Yeah. I'm afraid I agree. And I just can't see any benefit in having him in the side. I know he's a big, Julie, he's our performative chest pumper and, he did it. In fact, he did it, I think, at one point. He went up to the crowd taking a corner and, to the south stand there and he did all that bing and come on and all that shit. And stop it, you stupid man. Just take the fucking corner. He really is an absolute pain in the arse, isn't he?
I think that give him a few more weeks of RDZ and maybe we might see something a bit better from him. I think he's certainly got ability. I mean, yeah, he is a pain, but a lot of footballers do that sort of posturing rubbish now. He's obviously got something which makes managers kind of keep picking him. Because if you remember, Thomas Frank called him the only elite player in the squad, which I thought was going some. That was when I really began to have doubts about Thomas Frank because he wasn't seeing what the rest of us were seeing. Would I leave him out of the team? No, I think he's obviously there for a reason, apart from getting on our nerves. Maybe, he's just a popular member of the squad and, he's got something which we can't see. And as you say, I mean, just score a nice goal or two from time to time.
We can't see things and we have to accept that managers and coaches and stuff, they do this for a living and they must know stuff that we don't. Let's sort of focus quickly, Dave, on Xavi. The assist was a thing of beauty. The goal was just staggeringly good. Beautiful work by Berrival and, he smuggled the ball away. And I felt that almost that Xavi had slightly messed it up when he cut inside. And then he unleashed that powerful curling shot. And Kev and I, and all of us, we've talked about this before and many, many times, that football is about the ecstasy, the joy, those moments that suddenly just, you explode inside. I'm really quite a calm watcher of football, but I was up and screaming. It was beautiful, wasn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, the dog was going mad in our house. I was howling at the TV and the dog joined in. It was almost better than winning the Europa League, actually. It was that good because it was just that moment of joy, that kind of, as you said, that moment of where it transcends and all that sort of stuff. And actually, I was sort of half thinking maybe, I know we've sort of dismissed this Spurs way and stuff like that, but in a way, that kind of thing is something that you're looking for, isn't it? That's the Hoddle or the Gascoigne or the whatever, the super special moment. And we have had a few of those players down the years, maybe a little bit more than our share, actually, given how bloody mediocre we've been a lot of the time. He is, on occasion, he is at that level, and that's what you follow the team for.
It just was such a lifter, wasn't it? And notwithstanding that we all knew it wouldn't, we'd probably end up drawing or losing. It's moments like that you just feel like, wow, this is what it's about.
He's a proper number 10. And the reason he spent a lot of the season just sort of chasing around all over the place is that he hasn't had, the supply, and he hasn't had the quality alongside him to actually operate as a number 10 in the proper way. And I think that it was telling that this game, he was able at last to show what he's really capable of. Because, as I say, we had a proper midfield and not a lot of young players who are still kind of learning the ropes. So will we be able to hang on to him?
That's the thing. I mean, he's the only player we've got, Kev, who can do stuff like that. And we've seen it many, many times. And he's had games where he's been a bit quiet or he's maybe tried too many things. But it was it moved me that, and that's so rare to be able to say that. We do need to talk about Kevin Danso. He's a pure defender. Yeah. And he doesn't have fancy footwork. He doesn't do clever things on the ball, but it's still a gift to be in the right place. He made several headers from under his own bar, and you just felt this is a really good, honest, tough performer who I want in my side. And he made a mistake. And the shit that came at him, and inevitably racist, I don't know, it's in a civilized society, these Neanderthals just make me, they nauseate me.
I mean, it's hard to know where to start, isn't it? Like, in a way, I don't want to be too analytical about it because so much is about social media, so much is about trolling, so much is like a sort of self-conscious racism. In a way, it's just to wind people up. But underneath that, there's a sense that shit that we had in the 70s and 80s, it's still there. And there's a proportion of our own, I'm going to use the word fan base, our own fan base, that's, you don't hear it. You don't hear it at the ground. I can't remember the last time I heard anything racist at the ground, either towards our own team or towards anyone else. But that doesn't mean that people aren't mumbling it to their mates. And I think some of the racism towards Danso came from Tottenham fans. And you just want to say, fuck off. You know, I don't want to be associated with you.
You made an interesting point on our WhatsApp group this week that you want to believe that Spurs fans on the whole rise above this, that we're better than that we're more moral than these other fans. But the sad truth is we have probably the same proportion of cretins and morons and racists. You know, why are we any different? We're not.
Something else I did say was that actually, even in the bad old days, Tottenham and Arsenal was spared the real worst of the racism. I think both our fans and Arsenal's fans had less of it. During the days, the 70s days of the National Front and all of that, they were around. You saw them at White Hart Lane every now and again. You saw them at Highbury every now and again. But on the whole, that sort of racism wasn't part of either team's support, to any major extent. And I've always been proud of that. And, you wonder if we had no social media now, whether I'd be saying the same thing, that actually our fans are much better than everyone else's fans. I don't know.
A couple of other sort of side issues and comments about other players. I thought Solanke took a lot of shit online as well, I noticed. I thought he worked his balls off and did some interesting stuff and good stuff. Until when he came on, looked, as he always does, he looked dangerous and crafty and like he might produce something. Julie Muani. He's willing. There was a moment, wasn't there, where Xavi broke through and he hit the post, right? And Muani was wide open to his right. And I thought, no, the shot is the thing to do here. But I don't trust Muani to even hit the target from 3 yards. And I hate being this focused on a player's uselessness, but for us, he's useless.
I still haven't worked out what Muani is actually for. He's a sort of not quite so effective duplicate of Tell, as far as I'm concerned. Tell does far more. And yet, again, coaches seem to think there's something there. I keep thinking, is this something that I haven't seen in him, which, because I'm not an expert? But, I mean, to me, he's pointless. He's probably the most pointless person in the whole team. I mean, I'd actually rather have Richarlison there than Muani.
What about Timo?
Timo, I won't hear a word against him. We've had this before. At least he does something sometimes. But no, Muani is the most pointless player, I think, that we've had for some time.
I can't think of anyone more pointless, but Ken is another one of these guys where I can't quite see. We said the same about Simmons, haven't we? That, sometimes there's something the managers don't fancy about Simmons. And I think Tell may be the same as well. I can't figure out why he's not a starter almost the whole time, because he just seems, as you said, dangerous. And between him and Muani, it's absolutely no contest. Certainly if Muani is playing out wide, I don't see him as a wide player anyway. So to be on the positive side, I like Tell, and I want more of that and less of Muani.
Yeah, I think most Spurs fans would agree with that. Kev, a couple of other things. Maddison surprised everyone by sitting on the bench. Nobody thought that he was coming back this season, I don't think. And he may not. He may not play. This might be a kind of a confidence booster for everyone else to see him, because he's clearly well-liked and someone who, unlike Porro, his enthusiasm and passion is real. Can you see him playing a part? I mean, obviously you don't know the state of fitness of his knee, but he wouldn't be on the bench unless, presumably, he was capable of putting in a few minutes.
I was wondering, is RDZ, is he making a point here just as a sort of boost, a boost to him, a boost to the team, a boost to the fans? I'm not sure. Or is he close to coming back? I hope he's close to coming back. I really do. He's not necessarily going to sort of immediately be up and running and winning games for us, but he can make a difference, definitely make a difference. Again, in terms of that creativity. I hope it wasn't, making a point of some kind. I hope it was just part of getting him back and getting him back playing, because we really need him.
Yeah, we do. You very pointedly said RDZ, and Julie, I noticed on camera there, blanched because she went on Radio 5 Live and said RDZ, and we've had a bit of a debate, haven't we, on the group about whether it should be a Z or a Z. Let's clear this up once and for all. Julie, why is it RDZ?
Well, wait a minute, because that is going to be my Room 101.
Well, okay, let's move on from that, because I've got another RDZ stroke Z issue, which was after the match. He was really positive. He seems to be talking about the players in a positive and affectionate way that we didn't see with Frank. We certainly didn't see with twat-faced Tudor. I don't think we saw it with Ange at all. And this is not something I expected from De Zerbi. And he also said we can win all 5 of the remaining games. Now, looking at the opposition, it's not totally implausible. I'm feeling like, I know we had our issues with him, we still do, but this is very much breath of fresh air territory, isn't it?
I have no issues with him at all. I think he's a total sweetheart. And if anybody's going to turn things around, it's going to be him. I love him already. I'm in love. I think he's fantastic. And I think the team are in love as well. They've at last got a manager who knows what he's doing and who can tell them what they've got to do. And he is the arm around the shoulder guy as well. We keep going on about Harry Redknapp being the arm around the shoulder guy. RDZ is the same, I think. So even if we do get relegated, I think that there's every hope that I hate to use the cliche, that we'll bounce back.
I had that feeling too, that I don't know why, but he looks committed to it in a way that I don't think Frank ever really did. Frank always sort of felt, even when it was going okay, he felt semi-detached. And obviously Tudor I don't really blame, to be honest. I blame the owners more than him. But as exactly what Julie said, I think even if the worst happens, I think he'll stick with it.
I'd like to tender an apology for calling Tudor twat-face, because that was silly, it was childish, and he wasn't a twat, because he was brought in by people who are clueless. It wasn't his fault. It was the impossible job, and there was no way he was going to succeed. And I felt very sorry for him, particularly at the end, given his own personal circumstances as well. Kev, the club decided that before this match, they were going to inform the fans that everyone would have a flag by their seat, and they asked everyone to wear white because they wanted us to really show our support. Look, here's my feeling, and I'd like to hear your take on this. I'm already fucking there. I'm supporting. I've paid a fortune. I'm there every week. I go and suffer. I'm fucking supporting. I don't need to put a flag in the air. And it just felt like, sorry, I'm getting excited, but it felt like the most tone-deaf stunt of all time.
Yes, and it's part of this artificial creation of an atmosphere that is so fucking annoying. I was sitting next to my daughter, we were in there about half hour before, and I kept having to say pardon. I mean, I have to say that a lot anyway, in any conversation, wherever I am. But we couldn't hear each other because of the bad 90s music that was happening, incredibly loud. And you just yearn for the old days where an atmosphere stemmed organically from the crowd, from the people there. And, on the whole, it was noisier then, it was louder then, it was a more supportive atmosphere then than it is now. This fake creation of an atmosphere, I can't bear it either. I'm completely with you with the flags. I deliberately didn't wave my flag. I just sort of stood there holding it, feeling slightly guilty, but I didn't undo it and I didn't wave it. So that will show them.
That will teach them. And by the way, my flag stayed resolutely where it was placed for the entire match. So, and that's it. I've made my point.
Under your arse?
Well, adjacent to my arse. Let's not be, this is typically lewd of you, Julian. I did allude to this earlier on. Oh, that was a clever bit of wordplay. Now, let's move on to something else, which I mentioned in the monologue at the beginning. There was a report out, not a report, it was an article, I think in some American magazine, but it was focusing on the way in which Spurs have recruited. And one of the things it said was that Spurs have this idea, or their recruitment department, that we should be buying athletes. Whatever metrics they're using, these sort of physical metrics, we're looking for some sort of athleticism score, Julie. And what we're not buying is people who can pass the football, which seems very odd. Do you concur with that analysis?
Yes, I do. Rafa Benitez was once commenting about the striker is the more intelligent player and the most intelligent player in a football team, not the winger, because all the winger has to do is basically run up and down, whereas the striker has to cut in and, find space and all that sort of stuff. If you just have pure athleticism, that's no good, because you've got to know where to run. The Prem is now very, very fast. I mean, everybody's an athlete, but you need an intelligent athlete. And their sprinters, Olympic standard sprinters, are often failures at football. If you look at Adam Gemmerly, who was a Chelsea trainee, ended up at Dagon Red, but became an Olympic standard medal-winning sprinter. He could run very fast, but he didn't know where to run. And Usain Bolt once tried to be a footballer after he'd hung up his track shoes. Same thing happened, didn't know where to run. He was a failure at football. So it's not athleticism, which is the prime requirement. I think that is one of the reasons why Spurs recruiting has been so poor, because they haven't actually paid attention to the prime requirement of football intelligence. Look at Harry Kane. He's not the fastest runner in the world, is he? Never was.
No. I mean, in fact, I always felt and still feel Harry's one of the most ungainly looking runners I've ever seen. His arms don't quite move in the right way and he's kind of hunched and weird, and yet he's probably the best footballer in the world right now. So, and he has been for some time. So the things he can do are because he's got the technique, but also because he's got the brain. Dave, I have got a list here of the purchases since Langer came in. Okay. And what I find fascinating here is, mostly quite cheap in the great scheme of things, and mostly runners or people who've just not produced anything. So let's have a quick whiz through. Radu Dragusin, Timo, of course, came in on loan. Solanke, Archie Gray, Odebert, Beraval, Yang Min Hook. What's happened to him? Kinski, of course, Simons, Kudus, Tell, and those three probably bracketed together we would consider them to be flair players and they can do stuff. Danso, Takai, Palhinha, Muani, Gallagher, Sousa. Now, my first observation there is not one of those players is an outright star. And maybe we can't recruit those people. Solanke probably would be the highest profile player we bought. And out of that list, maybe Kudus next. Beyond that, it's a list of players, I think, who will never play for Man City or Chelsea. Well, not Chelsea, not these days, but Liverpool or Arsenal. They're just not good enough to play for those teams. Am I being unkind?
No, I think you're right, really. They're that next level down, aren't they? There's a part of Spurs recruitment that is obviously, as you sort of alluded to, is budget, isn't it? We're certainly not going for the elite level from a budget point of view. And we are going that kind of workmanlike rather than in general, with the exception of those three that you mentioned. We buy Skodas, don't we, rather than anything more upmarket. Yeah. They're very practical, but that's about it, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a complaint of our fans for many years, hasn't it? That, Levy, under his reign, we weren't buying real star players, and we ended up, Kev, we threw, 65 million at Ndombele. Anyone we spent big money on, well, by our standards, mostly with a view to what can we do with them? How can we develop them? Will they become something? Archie Gray, Tell, even Dragosin came to us at 21 or something. And these are not players who are ready, they're not ready-made stars. We might turn them into stars. We might end up offloading them at a profit, usually at a loss. And that seems to me to be at the root of a very flawed recruitment philosophy.
I was just going to say they were gambling on mid-table and maybe the occasional sort of flirting with the Champions League. But I don't think they thought they were gambling on relegation. I don't think anyone in the club saw that as a possibility. But now, retrospectively, we all look back and it's inevitable. I was just thinking, I once had 2 successive larders which made Skodas look brilliant, right? I think we haven't only been buying Skodas. I think we've also bought 1 or 2 larders as well. And maybe we're never going to buy, I'm going to keep extending this metaphor. Maybe we're never going to buy a Lamborghini Marzal, which was my favourite car when I was a child because I had a little Matchbox version of it. We're never going to buy a Lamborghini because we probably can't afford it and we probably can't compete at the moment with this ownership with City or Chelsea. But we can certainly go that one level up, at least from the Skodas, I think. A nice, at mid-80s, full Cortina would be all right.
It's all a bit lost on me, this, because I'm not interested in cars, and but I do know Skodas are legendarily shit and larders are worse, so there we are. So I know enough to know that. Now, look, I don't know who wants to take this on, maybe me. Some IT twat announced on LinkedIn that we've launched 2 new Spurs apps and a brand new website for the club and the stadium. And he says, I'll make a bold claim now. This is the best digital experience in world football. We've got the stadium app, right, which has got digital wayfinding from the street to your seat. Because, you've only been going for 50 years. How are you going to find your seat from the street without the wayfinder? So that's useful. And then we've got robotic fan cameras to take match day selfies from your seat. So apparently you can tell this camera to take a picture of you looking pissed off and miserable as you sit in your seat. I can't think of anything more fucking stupid and utterly pointless than this shit. And to trumpet it, Julie, we talk about this all the time. The club, and this may not be entirely the club's fault. This bloke may have gone early. I don't know. But why are you trumpeting this shit? He says, we're going to push further towards our goal of being a 365 days a year destination. And that kind of says everything, doesn't it, about who we've become?
Yeah, my heart sinks, in fact, because if it's a 365 days a year destination, what else have they got in mind for us? I mean, it's not going to be about the football, is it? It's going to be about the delights, the go-karting track or whatever it is, the skywalk, the abseiling down from this side of the stadium, which actually I give you is a really nice thing to do. It's about the NFL. It's about Beyonce or whatever. It is not a football stadium anymore.
It's striking how corporate all of this is. This is exactly the same way that big organizations behave. Even while they're in the middle of restructuring, they'll tell you some stuff that you've got to be really excited about, even though some of you are going to lose your job. There's always these very bizarre sort of juxtapositions of stuff that is completely fucking irrelevant and not related to anything. And you've all got to be very, very excited, and you've all got to get on board with it. And the flag is another example of this as well. T-shirts. I mean, you can wander around wearing, I have got upstairs somewhere a GSK T-shirt. Do you really want something like that?
Yeah.
It's no good.
It really is this ongoing failure to read the room. Here we are in dire straits on the pitch. And it's like, well, yeah, but hey, you can find your seat from the street, everyone. So there's that. Now then, I've got a few tweets here for us. Let's just whip through these. There's actually quite a good one that came up before the game against Brighton. It said, yes, we haven't won a game all year, and Brighton are the form team in the Premier League. But after much barrel scraping, I've noticed the significance of the letter B in home wins. Burnley and Brentford. There's not a lot there, is there? Just don't mention Bournemouth. I thought that was a good tweet. Here's a great tweet for everyone. Toby Alderweireld is the sort of character that should be club ambassador. He has forgot more about football than Mitchell Dawson. I'm still trying to work out what he's trying to say here. Is he trying to say he's forgotten more about football than... I don't know. What's he trying to say? Kev, what's that mean?
This might be a slightly extreme response, but I think if you gave people 3 opportunities, right, and on the third one they produce something as stupid as that, then I think shooting them is okay. I really do. I think humanity would benefit from that.
Because you're sparing humanity, but you're also doing the humane thing by the tweeter, aren't you? Really?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I think that's a good point. Here's a last one, which I don't get either. We just seem to sell our fantastic, potentially great juniors far too soon. Troy Parrott and Jack Clark come to mind. Let me just remind you, he said fantastically, potentially great juniors. Troy Parrott and Jack Clark came to mind. He says, I'm sure there are many more, just can't think of the names right now. There aren't any, you twit. We haven't sold anyone decent. We haven't bought anyone decent either. Okay, now then. I'm in a bit of a ranty old mood today. Let's move on before we just talk about... Oh, it has to be. We've got to say banana skin, haven't we, about Wolves. But before we do that, let's have a little touch of Room 101. Dave.
I'm going to come up with the current Arsenal squad. And I know that's going to sound like I'm just being tribal, and I am tribal as well. But I've managed to put that on one side because I would exclude Arsene Wenger's team. But this current team that they've got there really pissed me off. And what particularly pisses me off about them is not just their rivals and they're winning, maybe we're winning the league, hopefully they might not, but they're cheats. And they seem to have rehearsed their cheating to such a degree that I have never seen in any other club. I don't see, and now players dive. We know our players have been done for diving as well. Eze yesterday, he's only been there for 5 minutes. He manages to trip over some imaginary leg that wasn't there, gets his free kick. As for Gabriel, what can you say about Gabriel? He seems to have perfected this sort of swallow diving thing when he's anywhere within 5 yards of his back. And they just really piss me off. So we're going to have to get a bigger Room 101 to accommodate all of their squad.
Yeah. Okay, well, and Julie is applauding. So, Julie, I know you've got something RDZ/Z related.
Yes, I'm putting RDZ in Room 101 as opposed to RDZ. and I know this is a contentious issue. We have discussed it rather angrily on our WhatsApp, but RDZ, you just can't have it. It sounds like, it's so clumsy. It's like, dropping a fridge on your foot or something like that. Z, RDZ. Now, I described it as RDZ being more euphonious than RDZ. And Dave did a bit of a double take because obviously he's a thicko who doesn't know the English language. Now, euphonia means pleasant sounding. And RDZ, what's not to like? It's a beautiful thing to say. RDZ, not RDZ. So RDZ is going in the bin.
Okay, good one. Dave, listen, don't take that personally.
No. I bow to Julie's superior. How can we respond to euphonious other than to agree?
I give back, Dave. You're a scientist. I know nothing about science because our science teacher was so mad and unhinged and terrifying that I dropped chemistry and physics as soon as I could possibly do so. So, everybody has their own area of expertise, and we all have our own areas of not quite so expert. So there we are.
And I also gave up science when I was 11, basically, because we had a chemistry teacher called Mr. Harrison. He came from Hull or somewhere like that. I don't know exactly. And he'd always say, "How do we prove that?" And every sentence started with, "How do we prove?" I thought, I don't really care how we prove anything. So that was the end of me, and that's a particular line of inquiry. Now, what have you got for us, Kev?
Well, I've got horrible traumatic memories now of Mr. Burridge throwing me out of the chemistry room for setting fire to Mark Madeley's chemistry book with a Bunsen burner. And he screamed at me and physically removed me. Anyway, so I would put him, if he's still around, he goes in room 101, but it's not really football related. My football related thing is, can I just ask you all a question? Do you know what PGMOL stands for?
It's something to do with refs.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
But it's referred to constantly. And I realised that I didn't know what it actually stood for. And it's Professional Game Match Officials Limited, right? Which doesn't make any sense. It's not coherent. You don't know. There should be a comma in there somewhere, but you don't know. So I want to put them in there, not because of having a stupid name, but actually partly connected with what Dave was saying, is the appalling level of refereeing, which appears to have got worse since this PGMOL came into being. So since it became corporatized and managerial, and refereeing has got worse. We saw some terrible refereeing again on Saturday. I think every match we see terrible refereeing. I don't believe it's a conspiracy. I believe it's utter incompetence, really. I think we seem to have been on the sort of losing side of that incompetence more than most. But I don't think there's a plot against us. I just think it's just awful. And the watching that Arsenal match, I'm fully with you, Dave. It's Gabriel in particular got away with things that you suspect other people wouldn't get away with. And then the next step on that argument is, so maybe there is some kind of unconscious thing going on about to favour Arsenal. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just incompetence. And I think this professionalising of referees has actually made referees worse.
VAR hasn't helped either, Kev. I think VAR has undermined refs almost fatally. I mean, they're terrified of their own shadows now. Any decision is going to be scrutinised, and therefore, necessarily, they're becoming less competent, less able, less secure in their own judgment.
Yeah,
I rarely watch the European when we're not in the European games, but the standard of refereeing in the Champions, and I know the Champions League is the elite competition and all that, but it's so much better than our refereeing. And I can remember years ago that we used to, in a very chauvinistic way, always say that British referees were always the best, etc. I'm not sure they were, but they bloody certainly aren't now. They're terrible. I mean, that Madrid and Bayern game, I mean, it was a brilliant game anyway, but it's a tricky game to referee, and the referee was just on top of it altogether. And they're just not in this country, even even the biggest games like the Arsenal game yesterday.
Okay, well, I've just got a Room 101 for you, and it's Pat Nevin. Okay. Now, you might think he's a pretty anodyne and inoffensive little chap. And he's got a whiny little voice up here, up here, which is forgivable. I can let that go. What it is the little laugh mid-sentence. That really pisses me off. And trust me, once you've heard this, you will never unhear it, okay, what I'm about to tell you. And it's not because he said anything funny, and I don't think he's because he thinks he's saying something daft or beneath him, because we know he can read and stuff, and he likes indie music and what have you. He fancies himself as a bit of an intellectual. It's not that. So he'll go, that was a good ball into the box there by Ndiaye, and Tarkowski went down. And the Everton fans are calling for a penalty, but it never was. Or he'll say, oh, it's a great ball down the line there, but Shibla's couldn't catch it. It went out for a goal kick. I'm thinking, where's that laugh? What's it for? What's it covering? What's it intended to do? You stupid Scottish man. And I can't bear to listen to him anymore. What's he like at home? Excuse me, love, could you pass me the tomato ketchup? Thank you. What's wrong with him? So there we are, Pat Nevin, Room 101.
I'm not buying that, Simon, because he's lovely. Pat Nevin.
All right.
It's really lovely, and I admire him enormously.
Next time you talk to him, Julie, how you doing there, Julie? You're still looking quite good today, aren't you? That's what will happen. You'll go, oh, shit, yeah, you're right. Simon was right all along. What a dick. Anyway, moving on. We're playing Wolves on Saturday, aren't we? Well, we ought to be slaughtering Wolves, given how great we've now become and how shit they are. So, Dave, this is just a classic 1-0 defeat, isn't it?
It probably is, yeah. I think they will be, depending on, are they already relegated? And I think that takes its pressure off a bit as well. So I am hopeful. I'm going for the win.
That's old Dave. Kev, I mean, Dave talks about the pressure being off Wolves, but I mean, it's been off them for probably months by now, hasn't it? They've been doomed for a long time. I do worry, because we're Spurs fans, that somehow we'll blow this. We talk about must-win games and, is there such a thing? But this is absolutely crucial to our survival.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I don't feel I understand player psychology enough. We're making this on Monday night before the West Ham game, and I wonder if that will affect the way in which our players actually approach Saturday. If West Ham lose, then it's a boost to us tonight. If West Ham win, then it's quite deflating, and I just wonder. I don't know. I've no idea how they think if they do. Yeah. But I can see that might have an influence on how we do. I think already they're more up for it. That was clear from the Brighton game. Whatever else happened, they're more up for it than they have been all season. So I think we can beat Wolves. Yeah.
Okay. Julie, I mean, we were the one team to give Wolves a point earlier in the season, and that was, when we were, had we already started to doubt Thomas Frank, and actually it was a fairly late equaliser that got us back in the game when everyone else was slaughtering them. It's a worry, isn't it? Because, as I said earlier, we're Spurs, and we have a habit of fucking up. I just wonder whether De Zerbi is not the manager under whom this shit is going to carry on happening, and that we're going to turn that corner.
I'm going to channel the spirit of the 1980-81 FA Cup semi-final replay. Highbury, 2 from Garth Crooks, 1 from Ricky Villa. Spurs and Wolves go back a long way, and Spurs always seem to get the better of Wolves. I got a feeling, this is going to be a historic game where we're going to win. And no, I'm not completely insane. I'm not going to say this is going to be the game which saves us. But I think it'll be all right. I think that De Zerbi has instilled a new spirit into the squad. And I won't claim that I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not looking on it with the dread that everybody else is looking on it. Because, as I said, I'm just sort of invoking the spirit of that amazing Glenn Hoddle pass that he made to Garth Crook at Highbury.
Yeah.
I've got to jump in on that. I was in the North Bank on that evening, and somebody fainted just in front of me. And everybody was behaving themselves and making a big area around this person. And then Glenn got the ball and fired that ball through the Crooks. Bang, in the net. And absolute pandemonium. And I don't know, presumably the person didn't die, but they might well have done.
Who cares? It was a great pass.
It was a great pass.
Yeah. Remember that, because I was sitting in one of those stands with my friend Emmanuel, and we were 1-0 up, I think, were we? And Wolves were on the attack, and I'm going, and it was coming up to half time, and I said,
Just before half time.
blow it. And then Glenn got the ball, and I went, hang on. And he played a ball with the outside of his left foot, which kind of curled around the last defender, and Crooks ran onto it. If only we had Glenn. Incidentally, I may not leave this in the podcast. There was a thing that Teddy Sheringham said about Glenn Hoddle. He said how he absolutely worshipped him as a footballer. He said, until I met him, he said he's an absolute cunt. So made me laugh. There we are. I will not have anyone impugning Glenn, my favourite player of all time. So look, that's it. We're done. My thanks to Dave Bradshaw, to Kev Acott, and of course, Dame Julie Welch. We are on Twitter at NiceOneCyrilPod. We have our own website, www.niceonecyrilpodcast.co.uk. And why not give us a follow or subscribe to us, to the podcast on the platform of your choosing. And we are enormously grateful to everyone who listens to the show. Why not get involved and tell us what you think, and your comments? We'll throw them in, particularly over the summer, of course, because that's when we'll be struggling for material, and we'll listen to anything and we'll talk about anything. So there we are. We'll be back next Monday, brimming with the excitement of beating Wolves and moving out of the relegation positions. Or not, who knows. Anyway, till then, come on you Spurs.
Nice one, Cyril.